जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी राधा जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा जय गिरिवर धारी जय गिरिवर धारी
जय गोपी जन वल्लभा जय गिरिवर धारी जय गिरिवर धारी
जय गोपी जन वल्लभा जय गिरिवर धारी जय गिरिवर धारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा जय गिरिवर धारी जय गिरिवर धारी जय यशोद नंदन जय व्रज जन रंजन जय यशोद नंदन जय व्रज जन रंजन जय यशोद नंदन जय व्रज जन रंजन जय व्रज जन रंजन जय यशोद नंदन जय व्रज जन रंजन जय व्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरावनचारी यमुना तीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी माधव जय कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Jnanantimidandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrijatan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare Hare. Today we will be talking from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 32. This is a beautiful conversation between Kapila Muni and his mother Devahuti. In the previous chapters, we've seen that Devahuti has been very dejected about her life, and she feels that she hasn't done anything, and she really wants to focus completely on Krishna consciousness. So the first 4 verses of this particular text, 1 to 4, are talking about attached workers. So the personality of Godhead said, it's Kapila Muni who's speaking to Devahuti, the person who lives in the center of household life derives material benefits by performing religious rituals, and thereby he fulfills his desire for economic development and sense gratification, and again he acts the same way. Such persons are ever bereft of devotional service due to being too attached to sense gratification, and therefore, although they perform various kinds of sacrifices and take great vows to satisfy the demigods and forefathers, they are not interested in Krishna conscious devotional service. So here, Kapila Muni is actually talking to Devahuti about 2 sets of people. One is Grihasthas and the other one is Grihamedis. So when we look at the purport, it makes it very clear. He's talking the difference between who is a Grihamedi and why a person should not be a Grihamedi. So there are 2 kinds of householders. One person is a Grihastha and the Grihamedi. So a Grihamedi is actually spending his entire life doing sense gratification. His objective is not anything to do with self-realization. But a Grihastha's life, he does the same thing, like from outside perspective, when you see both of them live the same way. They have a family, they have kids, they work, and they do everything as how any Grihastha would do. But a Grihamedi is very attached to his family. But a Grihastha's life is, he's totally focused on being Krishna conscious, doing self-realization. So his activity, so Prabhupada mentions in the purport, he says, here the Lord is speaking about Grihamedi in this first text. He says he's talking about Grihamedi because Grihamedis are only for sense gratification. His activity is to enjoy the material benefits. He wants to do religious rituals and gain material benefits and live his life. He does not want anything else. anything more. He just wants to get, maybe a beautiful home. It's like Prabhupada always gives an analogy of being in the jail and wanting maybe put a little bit of AC, and there is no question of getting out of the jail, the Durgam. So there's no use of such a life. That's what he says. So a person who is living as a Grihamedi, he is actually going to end up again in the material existence and suffering and suffering. But a Grihastha is a person who lives with his family, but has no attachment for them. He does everything as a matter of duty, but he has no attachment. He prefers to live in a family life, but rather than being outside as a sannyasi, he's a sannyasi by heart. But his chief aim is actually self-realization. So Prabhupada gives a very nice example of Prahlad Maharaj. It is, Prahlad Maharaj says that Grihamedis are like punas charvitam charvananam. So they are already chewing the chewed. Sense gratification is such that they again and again, they suffer, they again come back to the material world, they have material pangs, and they continue to do this over and over again. So he says there is no use of being like that. So as we see, the first 4 texts are basically about attached workers. So in the second verse, he says, such persons are ever bereft of devotional service because they're so attached to sense gratification that they cannot even be attached to devotional service. Although they perform various kinds of sacrifice and take great vows to satisfy the demigods and forefathers, but the main crux is lost. They're just being here. They don't think about Krishna. Now, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna does mention in 7th chapter, 20th verse, that these persons who worship demigods have lost their intelligence. They are very much attached to sense gratification, and that's the reason they just pray to different demigods and they just get their work done. So a materialistic person has manifold demands. So a Grihamedi who wants to continue and prosperous materialistic life, their only thing is they'll do all the rituals very nicely, but again, they will not be attracted to any amount of Krishna consciousness. In the third one, he actually explains it very well. He says in the third thing, he says, such materialistic persons attracted by sense gratification, devoted to the forefathers and demigods, can be elevated to the moon, where they drink the extract of soma plant. So what is the use? He's living a very pious life. He's doing all these, pujas and everything, giving pindas to forefathers. He's doing everything very well. But what is the use of him doing it? Yes, he has a usage. He will go to the moon planet. He can go to the moon planet, and where he can actually, it's more sense gratification there. He has, moon is one of the planets in the heavenly kingdom. And last time when we had discussed, we talked about Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. And there is actually a very nice picture of Garbhodakashaya Vishnu where, he's lying down, just rewinding a little bit of how Karanodakashaya Vishnu is Krishna himself. When people actually realize, when the people feel that they do not want to serve Krishna in the spiritual world, Krishna in the entire spiritual realm creates a small corner called Mahatattva, where he enters that and he lies down on the Karana ocean. From his skin pores millions of football-like universes emanate. He again enters into each universe as Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. This picture is actually showing inside the one football, like a universe, where Garbhodakashaya Vishnu is lying down on the Garbhodaka ocean, and from his navel sprouts a lotus stem, and on top of the lotus is Brahmaloka. And we are somewhere in the middle, and we are inside the lotus stem, and we are in the, planets which are more for passion. So the upper planetary system more of goodness, and the people in the middle planetary system are in the mode of passion, and the lower planetary system in the mode of ignorance. Now, this particular verse in the second verse, it's the third verse says that he is actually able to go to the moon planet. And what do they do in the moon planet? They can drink an extract of soma plant and enjoy. But again, when their pious act credits go, they come back to return to this planet. Now, all the planets of the materialistic person, including all the heavenly planets, such as moon, are vanquished when the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, goes to bed of serpents, which is known as Anantasesha. When at the end of it is said that there are two kinds of devastation. One is at the end of Brahma's day, and one is at the end of Brahma's life. So every night when Brahma goes to sleep, there is a partial devastation, and there is a complete devastation when he lives for 100 years. And today Brahma is supposed to be 52 years old, and one day of Brahma is actually 1,000 yugas, 1,000 of the 4 yugas. That means 4,000 yugas. So Brahma has one day, like that he has one night. So like that, he lives for about 100 years. So when you look at this, then all these planets in the lotus stem, everything collapses and it's all gone. And the next 5 to 7 shlokas actually describe about detached workers. We're talking about grihasthas. Those who are intelligent and are purified and are in purified consciousness are completely satisfied in Krishna consciousness, freed from the modes of material nature. They do not act for sense gratification. Rather, since they are situated in their own occupational duties, they act as one is expected to act. Now, this is more important. Here, Prabhupada actually gives a very nice purport where he mentions, he says that, he gives an example of Arjuna. Arjuna did not want to fight in the battlefield first, and then he fights for the sake of Krishna. So all of us have our duties in this material world. So we need to do our duties and get off from this place. And, because our aim is self-realization. We want to know where we are from and where we have to head to. So he says that the first class example of this type of man is Arjuna. Arjuna was a Kshatriya and his occupational duty was to fight. So at first he says he cannot fight. But as far as Arjuna is concerned, he is declined to fight for his own sense gratification. He said that although he could get a kingdom by fighting with his relatives, he did not want to fight them. But when he was ordered by Krishna, when he surrendered to Krishna, Krishna tells him Bhagavad Gita in the battlefield, and his duty was to satisfy Krishna. And then he fought. Thus he fought not for sense gratification, but for the satisfaction of Krishna, who is actually called Rishikesha. He is the master of all the senses. So the persons who work at their prescribed duties, not for sense gratification, but for the gratification of the Supreme Lord, they are called Nissanga, freed from influence of modes of material nature. So that is the time that they will be freed from the modes of material nature. A person cannot be freed from modes of material nature unless he is completely surrendered unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's what he says. He says Nissanga. So it's a very important point here. In the next verse, he says, it's beautifully mentioned, by executing one's occupational duties, acting with detachment and without a sense of proprietorship or false ego, one is posted in one's constitutional position by dint of complete purification of consciousness. And by thus executing so-called material duties, he can easily enter to the kingdom of God. So actually Kapila Dev is actually telling his mother, Devahuti, explaining very nicely. Actually, as it goes in the chapter, he explains about different yoga system and what is the end of those yoga systems and why a person should actually take up to Bhakti Yoga. He says constantly, a person who's constantly thinking, he's getting up in the morning, he's taking care of his household chores, everything as a service to Krishna, keeping Krishna as the center. And such people are actually grihasthas. And Prabhupada mentions in the purport, he says, you should not be a grihamedi. Grihamedi is not going to help you in any way. Just being attached to your family, do your duty and don't be attached to the family. So he says, every one of us who has come to this material world has a sense of overlordship. We want to control. That's why we are here. Because we wanted to live away from Krishna. But the opposite type of religious performance, which is called nivritti, is act to the Supreme Lord. So he talks about two words. He said pravritti is that a person acting to sense over the, lord it over the material nature, and nivritti is to act for the Supreme Lord. So what we should be doing is acting for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the next one talks about, so we're talking about 5 to 7 is about detached workers, so we're still continuing the 7th one. Through the path of illumination, such liberated person approach the complete personality of Godhead, who is the proprietor of the material and the spiritual worlds, and is the supreme cause of their manifestation and dissolution. Now here he says about, people who are really free, who can get free of this material manifestation, material world. And Prabhupada gives a very nice word. He says, Surya Dvarena means the illuminated path or through the sun planet. The illuminated path is devotional service. So your path is very clear, back home, back to Godhead. Your map back to your goal is very clear in this. Now he says, in Vedas, it is advised in the Vedas not to pass through darkness, but pass through the sun planet. It is also recommended here that by traversing the illuminated path, one can be freed from the contamination of material modes of nature. So when a person is already acting under the material modes of nature, then he is mind, his intelligence doesn't act well, when he is totally surrendered to Krishna, Prabhupada says that in such a situation, he is not controlled, he's not a puppet in the hands of Maya anymore, then he will be able to understand things in right perspective. But this is again a process of chanting his holy names. So all living entities other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead are very small. Although they may be big by our calculation, everyone is very tiny. And therefore in Veda, Supreme Lord is called the Supreme Eternal amongst all eternals. So we know, a very simple analogy that Prabhupada gives all the time is we are drop in the ocean. Krishna, if he's the ocean, we are just a drop. We have the same quality as Krishna because we are a drop of ocean is salty, the entire ocean is salty. Similarly, we are part of Krishna, but we are same in quality, but we are minute. The drop is minute and the whole, the entire ocean is big. So it's just minute. We are just minute. Similarly, later we get to know that because Krishna has the independence, we also have our minute independence. So we have to tell Krishna that we want to serve you. So he will not come into our independence till the time we are ready to tell him that we are here for you. Now here, the next 8 to 11 verses, Kapila Dev is explaining to Devahuti about perfect yogi and worshipper of Hiranyagarbha and taking shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Let's look at them in more detail. In the 8th verse, he says, worshippers of Hiranyagarbha, expansion of the Personality of Godhead, remain within this material world until the end of 2 Prarthas, when Lord Brahma also dies. Now, after experiencing the inhabitable time of the 3 modes of material nature, known as 2 Prarthas, Lord Brahma closes the material universe, which is covered by the layers of earth, water, air, fire, ether, mind, ego, and then goes back to Godhead. So here, when we look at the picture, we are looking at, he's saying that Hiranyagarbha is none other than Garbhodaka Shai Vishnu. He's lying down on the causal ocean here, on the Garbhodaka ocean. And when a person is just meditating on him, then, it's like going on top of a skyscraper. So if you're getting on a skyscraper, you can actually walk up the stairs. You can take maybe a rope, or you can also go in an elevator. So everybody is trying to reach the same realm, but they're going in different ways. So depending on which way they choose, they will take more time. So here he's saying that if a person, Hiranyagarbha, so a person worshippers of Hiranyagarbha, they remain within this material world until the end of the 2 Paradas. They will be going back with Brahma, yes, they will, but they will take more time. You can imagine the end of Brahma's life, that is almost as calculated by 4,000 yugas and then, multiply by his number of years. So he says that the yogis who become detached from the material world by the practice of breathing exercises and control of mind reach the planet of Brahma, which is far, far away. After giving up their bodies, they enter into the body of Lord Brahma. Now here they're talking about the process of people who are doing Ashtanga yoga or other yoga process. This is not about bhakti yogis. He's saying that such people, they are all in realms. They are probably just below the realm of Brahma, and at the end of their, when they are achieved their yogic perfection, they go back and they stay in the body of Brahma. And when Brahma goes back to Godhead, they also go back. So yogis can also enter into the kingdom of God. They're all reaching the same place, but everybody taking a different path. One is taking the rope to get on it. Bhakti yoga is getting on the elevator, clicking a switch, and then you just go straight. Therefore, my dear mother, by devotional service, take direct shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated in everyone's heart. He said, why take all these routes? Take an easy route, surrender to Krishna, and then you will be able to reach the Supreme Abode faster. Now in the text 12 to 17, he talks about more pious paths, demigods, sages, impersonalists, and other Shastric workers. Here we're talking about other people. My dear mother, someone may worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead with a special self-interest, but even demigods such as Lord Brahma, great sages as Sanat Kumara, and great munis as Marichi have to come back to the material world again at the time of creation, when the interaction of the 3 modes of material nature begins. Brahma, who is the creator of this cosmic manifestation, who is full of Vedic knowledge, and the great sages who are authors of spiritual path and the yoga system come back under the influence of time factor. They are liberated by the non-fruitive activities and attain the first incarnation of Purusha, but at the time of creation they come back in exactly the same forms and position they had previously had. Now, as looking at the purport of this one, it explains that this is Brahma is actually a post. A very, very pious living entity gets to take this post. Now, again, since he is a living entity, he needs to purify himself to be able to go back home, back to Godhead. So, if he doesn't purify in his lifespan and doesn't take up to Krishna consciousness, then in that sense, he will have to come back. So it's the same rule for everybody, whoever it is. It doesn't matter what position they are, they have to be ready to complete surrender and then go back home, back to Godhead. So persons who are too addicted to this material world execute their prescribed duties very nicely with great faith. They daily perform all such prescribed duties with attachment to the fruitive result. So, as we had mentioned about Graha Medis, they are so addicted to the material world that they execute the prescribed duties very nicely, that they'll do. But again, they just do it for fruitive work. They just want to gain more, maybe a richer position in the material world, rather than going back home and serving Krishna personally. Such persons impelled by the mode of passion are full of anxieties and always aspire for sense gratification due to uncontrolled senses. They worship their forefathers and are busy day and night improving the economic condition of their family, society, or national life. So this actually includes everybody. It doesn't have to be a living entity living with a family. Could be a politician living for the country. But again, if he is doing everything for the sake of Krishna, for self-realization, then he is actually doing a progress. If he is not doing that, then there is no use. He is actually going to be again coming back, going through the birth, old age, death, and disease. He will be in this circle. And the text 18 to 21 continues the same thing. He talks about other people. Who are he talking? He is talking about? He says, such persons are called Traivargika. Now, who are Traivargikas? Because Traivargikas are those people who are interested in the three elevating process. They are averse to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who can give relief to the conditioned soul. They are not interested in Supreme Personality of Godhead's pastime, which are worth hearing because of his transcendental prowess. Let's look at the purport of this particular verse. This is 28. Where Prabhupada very nicely says, he says, the Supreme Absolute Truth, the Personality of Godhead is one, and he is spread everywhere by his impersonal feature. This is clearly expressed in Bhagavad Gita. Lord Krishna says, everything that is experienced is but an expansion of my energy. Everything is sustained by him, but that does not mean that he is in everything. Sense perceptions, as annual perceptions of the sound of a drum, visual perception of a beautiful woman, or perception of a delicious taste of milk preparation by tongue, all come through different senses and are therefore differently understood. He gives a very beautiful analogy. We'll get to this in more detail because it's a very important part, because this explains why people understand scriptures in different ways. He says, therefore, sensory knowledge is divided into different categories, although actually everything is one as manifestation of the energy of Supreme Lord. Like the example that he gives is absolute true is the creation. Like he says, for example, an oyster shell it appears to be golden in color. This appearance of golden hue is due to only the perception of the eyes. Here he's actually refuting what is the difference between Vaishnava philosophers and Mayavadi philosophers. He says the philosophy that the absolute is true and this creation is false is not accepted by Vaishnava philosophers. Vaishnava philosophers say there is the entire material world is non-existent. It's totally false. But Vaishnava philosophers don't believe in that. They say that, they mention that the example is given in that although the example he gives is that gold is something that glitters, right? This does not mean that the glittering object is false. So let's take the example. He says an oyster shell is present, which actually appears like gold. This appearance of gold hue is because of why I perceive it as gold. But that does not mean the oyster shell is false. The oyster shell is existing. I might see it as different, but thinking that oyster shell itself doesn't exist is wrong. Similarly, by seeing the form of Lord Krishna, one cannot understand what he actually is. But this does not mean that he is false. The form of Krishna has to be understood as it is described in Brahma Samhita. We just read Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has an eternal, blissful spiritual body. By our imperfect sense perception, we cannot understand the form. We have to acquire knowledge about him. Therefore, it is called Jnanam Ekam. Now, Bhagavad Gita confirms that there are fools who simply upon seeing Krishna consider him to be a common man. Prabhupada says this, they do not know that the unlimited knowledge, power and opulence of the Supreme Lord. Material sense perception, speculation leads to the conclusion that the Supreme is formless. So there are people who, because of their perception, it's a problem with their perception, they say that Krishna actually doesn't have a form. They do not know that the unlimited knowledge, power and opulence of Supreme Lord. Now it is because of such mental speculation that conditioned soul remains in ignorance under the spell of illusionary energy. Krishna very beautifully tells in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, in Confidential Knowledge, he says, it's like this, like for example, Prabhupada explains that if suppose there is a person and he is the best of best friends, so I will go reveal my innermost secrets to that person because he believes in me, he has faith in me, or I feel that I can tell my innermost secrets to that person. So Krishna tells that's why Bhagavad Gita is an open secret. He says that if somebody has complete faith in me, then the person will get to know about me more. I mean, it's a fact. I would not go and tell about my innermost secrets to somebody who's envious about me. So he says similarly, so the Yogamaya curtain, the spell of illusion energy will remain for people who don't have the surrender or faith in Krishna. So it is because of such mental speculation that the conditioned soul remains in ignorance under a spell of illusory energy. The Supreme Person has to be understood by transcendental sound vibrated by him in Bhagavad Gita. He says there is nothing superior to himself. The impersonal Brahman effulgence is resting on his personality. The purified absolute vision of Bhagavad Gita is compared to the river of Ganges. So if you see here, the impersonalists are only looking at the effulgence. They cannot see the beautiful form of Krishna because they are not completely surrendered yet. But there's nothing wrong. They have started the process. But again, it's like getting on a skyscraper in different ways. They will take their time to reach, to understand. After many, many births of doing this, they will be able to understand that Krishna has a beautiful form. Now, in this verse, it is clearly said that those who are averse to the Supreme Lord, Godhead, Personality of Godhead, speculate with their imperfect senses about the nature of the Absolute Truth. Now, nothing can be speculated about Krishna. Krishna is a Paramatma. He has to let us know what he is. People can be speculating like a scientific thought that, oh, maybe it is like this, maybe it's like that. The formless Brahman conception, however, can be received only by oral reception and not by personal experience. So this is like, we always say that we have such limited senses. According to science, we can always say there is no infrasonic and ultrasonics. But we know we have proved, even though we cannot hear, the dogs can hear. When we do hearing testing for a person, we always test from 20 hertz to 20,000. So these are the only range that we can actually hear. Anything below and after, I can always say it doesn't exist. So when I'm looking at myself, I have such a limited sense perception. How can I prove that something is existing or not existing? That's why they say that even understanding Brahman, about Krishna, it all has to come from oral reception. That's how Vedas were actually taught. It's always by saying. It's just in Kali Yuga that since people cannot remember everything is put in books. The knowledge is therefore acquired by oral reception. It is confirmed in Vedanta Sutra, Shastra Yonitvat. One has to acquire pure knowledge from the authorized scriptures. So-called speculative arguments about absolute truth are therefore useless. So he says we need to get it from authorized scriptures, not just pick any book and start reading. Because I always think of an analogy, if I have to read a nice mathematics book, I probably take from a person who has done his PhD in mathematics and really done research on it, rather than from a person who has actually probably done Sanskrit or something else, and he's just giving his viewpoint. So it has to be in that way, and it also has to be in the parampara. It has to be connected. You have to be connected to Krishna. It cannot be by any person who is not following. He has to be Acharya, who actually does the Acharana and then teaches us how to do it. So the actual identity of the living entity is his consciousness, which is always present while the living entity is awake, dreaming or in deep state. Even in deep sleep, he can perceive by consciousness whether he is happy or distressed. Thus, when consciousness is displayed through the medium of subtle, gross material bodies, it is covered. But when the consciousness is purified in Krishna consciousness, one becomes free from the entanglement of repeated birth and death. So he says the consciousness is always present in that person. And it is just that a person has to realize that I am not this body, I am an eternal soul that actually dwells, that actually is present within me, and that to purify my situation, I need to be able to get connected to Bhakti Yoga. So when uncontaminated pure knowledge is uncovered from the modes of material nature, the actual identity of the living entity is discovered. He is eternally the servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now this is a process. There will be, stages of understanding this. A very nice example Prabhupada gives here is the process of uncovering like this. For example, the example that he gives is the rays of sunshine are luminous, and the sun itself is also luminous. In the presence of sun, the rays illuminate just like the sun. But when the sunshine is covered by the spell of cloud or by Maya, then darkness, the imperception of the perception begins. So if a person is not able to understand perceive something, it's because he's covered by the spell of Maya or the cloud. Therefore, to get out of the entanglement of the spell of nascence, one has to awaken the spiritual consciousness. So that is the most important. So person has to. So that's what he is actually continuing to say. He says that you need to start getting interested in doing Bhakti Yoga. And now he actually tells he talks about other 3 yogas also. He says such persons are condemned by the Supreme Order of Lord because they are averse to the nectar of activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are compared to stool-eating hogs. They give up the hearing the transcendental activities of the Lord and indulge in hearing of the abominable activities of materialistic person. These people usually, when you go show them books, tell them to read, they probably end up saying that I don't have any time. But they might have time to read about every person who's recently acted in the movies, or their life history, or somebody is giving an interview about their everything to do with material world. That they can hear, but again they will not have a time or interest to hear about what the scriptures have to say. In this purport also there is a couple important points where he says Supreme Lord is Mahat Pada, which means the total material energy, as the Mahatattva is lying at his lotus feet. The original of total energy. So when we are talking here, he basically talks about, we looked at Garbhodaka Shai Vishnu. So these are footballs that are scattered around in the material world. But Karanandaka Shai Vishnu, when he's lying down, all the material elements, everything is present within him in, subtle, form, that is where from all the living entities actually emerge. So when he is talking about it, he says, let's go to the purport of 19. He says that the origin of the total energy of the cosmic manifestation is Mahatattva. Mahatattva is, we looked at the part when there were living entities in the spiritual realm, and some of the living entities said, we don't want to be with you, Krishna, we want to be independent. So Krishna creates in the spiritual world, in one corner, Mahatattva is created, and he is lying down there on the Karana ocean, the causal ocean, and that is Mahatattva, that little bit of the cloud, which actually is the starting of the material world. So from Mahatattva, all other 24 divisions have sprung, namely the 11 senses, including the mind, the 5 sense objects, the 5 material elements, and then the consciousness, the intelligence, and the false ego. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of the Mahatattva. Therefore, in one sense, because everything is an emanation from the Supreme Lord, there is no difference between the Lord and the cosmic manifestation. But at the same time, the cosmic manifestation is different from the Lord. So it is one and the same in one sense. So he says that everything is sprung from this Mahatattva. Krishna is so merciful that he wants to give us a space, and then let us decide. And it's just that living entities who are not ready to serve Krishna end up being here. And once we realize that we want to get off this place and go back to Krishna, then everything, starts happening. That he gives us the route, go back home, back to Godhead. So here he's talking about that Mahatattva in one sense, because everything is emanation from Krishna. It's Mahatattva, Karanandaka Shai Vishnu, everything is Krishna himself. But it's the same, but also not the same. In one sense, why? Because he gives a very nice example. He says, but at the same time, the cosmic manifestation is different from the Lord. The word Swarat is very significant here. Swarat means independent. The Supreme Lord is independent and the individual soul is also independent because, as we just said, we are part of Krishna and Krishna has we have the same qualities as Krishna. So since he is independent, we are independent too. So although there is no comparison between two qualities of independence, the living entity is minutely independent and the Supreme Lord is fully independent. As the individual soul has a material body made of 5 elements and the senses, the Supreme Independent Lord similarly has a gigantic body of the universe. So when we are talking about the universal form, he explains that very nicely. We have this body, we are a minute soul, we have a minute independence, and we live in this body. And we have different names. But Krishna also has this universal body, which is the universal form, where I'll read that again, as the individual soul has a material body made of 5 elements and the senses, the Supreme Independent Lord similarly has a gigantic body of the universe. The individual body is temporary. Similarly, the entire universe, we are talking about the material world here, which is considered to be the body of the Supreme Lord, is also temporary. And both the individual and the universal bodies are the products of Mahatattva. So it has come from the Mahatattva. One has to understand that the difference with intelligence. Everyone knows that his material body has developed from the spiritual spark, and similarly the universal body has developed from the supreme spark. So it explains very clearly. He says, super soul, as the individual soul develops, so I'll read that again. The individual body is temporary. Similarly, the entire universe, which is considered to be the body of the Supreme Lord, is also temporary. Now, I wanted to read this again and again because I always had this question of the universal form, whether it is there or it's not there. Because earlier chapters we had read that if suppose a person has a problem with, venal problem, they have to go have a bath in the river. Because the river is actually the vein of the universal form. The hair of the trees are actually the hair of the universal form. So, and the artery, if suppose somebody has a problem with digestion, then they have to go have a bath in the sea. So these are all connected. These are digestive things. So I used to always wonder that whether this is imaginative for us to understand, but it does look, it is temporary manifestation because Krishna is giving the space for us. So we are always in Krishna. We are always part of Krishna. We cannot be away from Krishna. But it's a realization to me that I need to understand where I am and what I'm supposed to do. So, as the individual soul has a material body made of 5 elements and the senses, the Supreme Independent Lord similarly has a gigantic body of the universe. The individual body is temporary. Similarly, the entire universe, which is considered to be the Supreme Lord, is also temporary. And both the individual and the universal bodies are products of Mahatattva. One has to understand the difference with intelligence. Everyone knows that his material body has developed from a spiritual spark. Like my material body has developed because I am a spirit soul and I live in this body, and that's the reason the body exists. And similarly, the universal body has developed from the supreme spark, the super soul. As the individual body develops from individual soul, the gigantic body of the universe develops from the supreme soul. Just as the individual soul has consciousness, the supreme soul also has consciousness. But although there is a similarity between the consciousness of the supreme soul and the consciousness of the individual soul consciousness is limited. So we're again and again saying that whatever we have is same in quality with Krishna, but we are very limited. Whereas the consciousness of the supreme soul is unlimited. This is described in Bhagavad Gita. He says, Kshetrajñam chapi mam vidhi. The super soul is present in every field of activity, just as the individual soul is present in the individual body. Both of them are conscious. The difference is that individual soul is conscious of the individual body only, but the super soul is conscious of the total number of individual bodies. So that even makes it clear that in every atom of this world, Krishna is present. Because he is present. Now here, it doesn't make that Krishna has a material body. It understands that he manifests, which is temporary manifestation as a universal form. And then, of course, Krishna has a beautiful Shyamasundara form. So because I felt that this was an eye-opener for, all the chapters that we read about a universal form. So, and then he says, such materialistic persons are allowed to go to the planet called Pitraloka. Now, we read that, let me get back to that. So this was 29. I'm sorry, one second. So this is what he says, and before we get to this, I just want to complete this one. So that's what he says. He says that there are different sets of people and how they end up being in different places. So in the 19th, 332:19, he's talking about people who everyone is addicted to hearing the activities of another person, whether a politician or rich man. That's what we were talking about. So there are so many nonsensical literature, stories, and books of speculative philosophy. Materialistic persons are very interested in reading such literature, but they do not have time to read Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita or Vishnu Purana, Bible or Quran. But they're not interested in anything to do with scriptures. These persons are condemned by the Supreme Order as much as a hog is condemned. Now, the hog is interested in eating stool. If hog is offered some nice preparation made of condensed milk or ghee, he won't like it. So that's the way it is. People who are in the affected by material modes of nature, they are ready to read about every other literature except pick up a scripture and read, because they are interested in the hellish activities than in transcendental activities. So the message of Lord's activities is nectar, and besides that message, any information which we may be interested. So Prabhupada very, very, very sharply and clearly says, anything that you're reading other than the scripture is actually directly taking you to hellish planets, because that's the literature is actually so hellish. So he says you have to just beware. Now, such materialistic persons are allowed to go to the planet of Pitraloka by the southern course of sun, but they again come back to this planet and take birth in their own families, beginning again the same fruitive activities from birth to end of life. So it's again going on and again, it will never end. This is going on forever. It's very, very fortunate for a person to have a human form of life to even question these things. So Prabhupada mentions in the purport, he says in the Bhagavad Gita 9th chapter verse 21, it is stated that such persons are elevated to the higher planetary systems. As soon as their lifetimes of fruitive activity are finished, they return to this planet. And thus, they go up and down. They'll be working hard here. They'll do some pious activities. We are talking about Graha Medis. And then they will go back again. They'll enjoy their time and again fall back. So those who are elevated to the higher planets again come back into the same family for which they had too much attachment. So they would have taken many lives. They would have been attached to only a couple families, probably more. That's what it looks like. They're born in that particular family, and the fruitive activities continue again until the end of life. There are different prescribed rituals from birth until end of life, and they are very much attached to such activities. And their attachment is more to doing ritualistic activities. So it is going to help them to go up and down, and they will be here in this material world, enjoying and suffering and enjoying and suffering. But again, Kapila Muni is Kapil Dev is telling to his mother Devahuti that this is not the end. You don't want to take this path. Just surrender to Krishna. Yes, bro.
Taking birth in the same family, because the family means the members of the family. One is attached to the family means generally he's attached to the members of the family, and those family members may not exist. So that means in whichever form those family members are existing at the time that he's going to come back, most likely.
My understanding was whoever he is attached to most, the family member.
Okay, but the family members may not exist, right?
Yeah, but they will be in a different form, in a different family.
Yeah. And
but you are attached to that soul of one particular person.
Okay, so he would take birth in the family of those
that
souls,
person.
you think? Because he was never attached to a soul. He never saw the soul.
No. No, not the soul. My understanding was, reading the purport again, my understanding was, he says that they go up and down. Those who are elevated to the higher planets come again into the same family for which they had too much attachment.
So the last line, if you can read that.
There are different prescribed rituals from birth until the end of life. The before line? Okay. And they are very much attached to such activities.
So a family actually constitutes a set of rituals, a set of practices, a set of See, if it has been carried on from tradition to tradition, so that sort of things, and they are very attached to those kinds of things. So irrespective of the family, they are taking birth in that family because they are attached to those kinds of activities, rituals.
Oh, so maybe born into a quote-unquote Brahmin family, where they or if you are attached to.
But the nature of activities of that family is what attracts them eventually. So,
Because he wants to do that over and over again. He wants to be able to get up and down and do more rituals and.
beginning. So they say again. It says, take birth in their own families, beginning again the same fruitive activities from birth to the end of life. So that attachment to the family comes from that. Is that okay?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes. Oh, thank you, Prabhu. I just want you to add, please. Yeah. Is that clear, Prabhu? Yeah. So then he continues. He says, when the results of their pious activities are exhausted, they fall down by higher arrangement and again come back to this planet, just as any person raised to a high position sometimes all of a sudden falls. Now, I like the purport very much, where Prabhupada says, it is sometimes found that persons elevated to a very high position in government service falls down of a sudden and no one can check him. Similarly, after finishing their period of enjoyment, foolish persons who are very much interested in being elevated to the position of the president in higher planets also fall down to this planet. The distinction, I was remembering the story of Indra becoming a hog. And then when Narada Muni says, your lifetime in the hog is over, you need to get back, and he wasn't ready. So the attachment is so high for, eating the stool. A hog life is so abominable. And then again, he can go back, but he wasn't ready. Similarly, after finishing their period of enjoyment, foolish persons who are very much interested in being elevated to the position of president in higher planets also fall down to this planet. The distinction between the elevated position of a devotee and that of an ordinary person attracted to fruitive activity is that when a devotee is elevated to the spiritual kingdom, he never falls down. So Krishna does mention that in Bhagavad Gita, that if you come back to the spiritual world, you will never come back, you will never be sent to a material world again. Whereas an ordinary person falls, even if he is elevated to the highest planetary system. Again, getting back to our picture, the max that you can go is probably to if you're here, probably to the highest planetary system of here in Brahmaloka. You have to keep going up and down. This is we're talking about going up and down. That's the max you can reach. And again, you're going to finish up your pious credits and again fall down. Again, work hard and go up and down. So he says there is no use of such going up and down. You have to go back home, back to Godhead. Get out of this earth, water, fire, air, ether, this coverings and everything, and then get off the world. And he says the distinction between elevated position of a devotee and that of an ordinary person attracted to fruitive activities is that when a devotee is elevated to the spiritual kingdom, where there is no birth, old age, death and disease. So I love the point, and because it was a revelation for me, like Vaikunta, Vai means no, Kunta means misery. So Vaikunta does not have birth, does not have old age, disease and death. So that is the place we actually belong to, because we are eternally simple souls and part of Krishna, and we've fallen down. And the analogy that Prabhupada gives very beautifully is about the spark of fire. If we are together with a bigger fire, we will not be extinguished. But if a spark falls on the grass, after some time the spark would extinguish, because then it becomes a part of the matter. So he says that you should never fall down. So that's what he says. He says if you get to the spiritual kingdom, he never falls down. Whereas an ordinary person, even if he is elevated to the highest planetary system, Brahmaloka, that is the top of the lotus stem, it is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Abrahma Bhuvanal Loka Punaravartino Arjuna, that even if one is elevated to the higher planet, he has to come down again. There is no way that he can just go. But Krishna confirms in Bhagavad Gita. He says, Mam upetya tu kaunteya punarjanmana vidyate. Anyone who attains my abode never comes back to this conditioned life of material existence. He gives this very clearly. So our job is just to get on the elevator and go on to the top without stopping. So, in the next verse, he says, "My dear mother, I therefore advise you take the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for his lotus feet are worth worshipping. Accept this with all devotion and love, for thus you can be situated in transcendental devotion service." So, he actually explains this. The word Parameshti means the Supreme Person. As Brahma is the Supreme Person within this universe, Brahma is the caretaker, he is the creator of this universe. Now again, he gets that idea, he gets everything from Krishna that we saw in the earlier chapters of Bhagavatam. Now Krishna is the Supreme Personality in the spiritual world. Now Lord Kapila Deva advises his mother that he should take the shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, because it is worthwhile. It's like giving an action plan. He's saying that you do this, and this is not going to work. This is not going to take you where you want to go. No, this is not going to work either. Then just go ahead with this direction. So taking shelter of demigods, even those in the higher position like Brahma and Shiva, is not advised herein. One should take the shelter of the Supreme God, Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the thing that he says is the bhava. Now, sarva bhavena means in all loving ecstasy. Bhava is the preliminary stage of elevation before the attainment of pure love of Godhead. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita, Buddha bhava samanvitaha. One who has attained the stage of bhava can accept the lotus feet of Lord Krishna as worshipable. Now again, there is a process that we've looked at, how we can start with just sadhana and then keep going up to reach the bhava stage. But one person has to start the process at some point. And he also says that tat gunash. He also says, they're also significant in this verse is the phrase where he mentioned that discharging devotional service unto Krishna is transcendental. It is not a material activity. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Those who engage in devotional service are accepted to be situated in the spiritual kingdom. Brahma bhuyaya kalpade. They at once become situated in transcendental kingdom. So you don't even have to literally be transferred. Even being in this material body, we saw in the earlier verses that a person who becomes a devotee is not affected by the three modes of material nature. So automatically, being even in this body, a person is liberated, is totally in the spiritual world. So this is confirmed. He again says that one is situated in transcendental kingdom just by starting to do devotional service. He says devotional service in full Krishna consciousness is the only means of attaining the highest perfection of life for human being. So you have this human body, you need to understand that there's only one way that you can go, which is 100% and fast route. This is recommended herein by Lord Kapila to his mother. Bhakti is therefore nirguna, free from all tinges of material qualities. Now, Mayavadi's philosophers can always think that Krishna, if he's nirguna, we read it in Ishopanishad, nirguna doesn't mean that Krishna doesn't have any qualities. It is just that he doesn't have any material qualities. Prabhupada mentions that more clearly here. And he makes it clear that it is nirguna in sense that it doesn't have any material qualities. It is, although discharge of devotional service appears to be like material activities, it is never saguna or contaminated by material qualities. Yes, Prabhu.
On the other hand, we hear from in Srimad Bhagavatam and other places that Krishna has got an innumerable number of qualities, like infinite number of qualities that one cannot even count them. Even Anantasesha is unable to count with thousands of his mouths. So,
yeah, that is so true. It's never ending, and he's still counting continuously, right? Yeah, that is Anantasesha under the each universe, right? Who's holding on to each of the universe. So that's what he's saying. He's saying that although the discharge of devotional service appears to be like material activities, it is never saguna or contaminated by material qualities. So here Krishna's transcendental qualities are so sublime, there is no need to divert one's attention to any other activities. His behavior with devotees is so exalted that a devotee need not try to divert his attention to any other worship. It is said that the demonic Putana came to kill Krishna by poisoning him. But Krishna was pleased to suck her breast, and she was given the same position as his mother. So here Krishna is taking only the good part of it. He's not thinking about what negative the person had. So I was remembering that how in Vaishnava etiquette book it says that when you look at a Vaishnava, look only at the positive aspect. Don't look at the negative aspect. So here Krishna is looking at Putana only as a mother because she wanted to feed him. He did not take to point where he actually came to kill him. Devotees therefore pray that if a demon who wanted to kill Krishna gets such an exalted position, why should, he's actually talking about when Krishna is pleased, So he says that why should they go to any other person than Krishna? So there are two kinds of religious activities, one for material advancement, another for spiritual advancement. By taking shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna, one is endowed with both kinds of prosperity, material and spiritual. Why then should one go to any demigod? So here Prabhupada says that if you really want something in this jail-like place, a better AC or a better bedding or a better house, then ask Krishna. He will give it to you anyway, and then he will purify you of that. So you don't have to worry.
In the present age, no one even goes to demigods also. That is, those days are also over.
That's so true. That's so true. Thank you for the comment, Prabhu.
That is why Maya is bewildering in this age. She gives so much of facilities for those. Apparently people, if you see a lot of rich people in the world, they have not done any Lakshmi Puja. But the point is Maya Devi gives them so much of bewilderment that this is just the nature of this age.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, that they're actually using up there. So they're up now, they'll really come down next time. So they're going up and down, right? Yeah, they are here, so they go down. They go up and they go down. They'll be going on up and down like a seesaw. Now, engagement in Krishna consciousness and application of devotional service unto Krishna make it possible to advance in knowledge and attachment as well as self-realization. So, he's actually very clearly saying that there are different paths. Everybody is trying to reach the same place, but you take up to Bhakti Yoga, which is actually really quick. It is said that less intelligent men, Prabhupada mentions in the purport that many times people say that less intelligent men actually sit down to chant or do bhakti. He says, is meant for persons who are not advanced in transcendental knowledge and renunciation. But the fact is that if one engages in devotional service of the Lord in full Krishna consciousness, he does not have to attend separately to practice detachment or to wait for an awakening of transcendental knowledge. It is said that one who engages unflinchingly in devotional service of the Lord actually has all good qualities of the demigods develop in him automatically. One cannot discover how such good qualities develop in the body of a devotee, but it actually happens. There is one instance, and he talks about the Mrigari. Now, Mrigari was a hunter, and he had a pleasure of killing animals half-killed. And then when Narada Muni saw these half-killed animals, he felt so sad, and he went and asked him, why would you do that? And he said, I feel very happy when I see them suffer. So then Narada Muni explains him about self-realization, and he tells him how he is going to suffer because of all this. And then he gets afraid, and he says that he wants to surrender. So after he starts following the regulations, when Narada Muni comes to meet him, he wants to walk in such a way that he doesn't even want to kill an ant. So he says that such becomes the quality of a person when he becomes a devotee. So those who are very eager to advance in transcendental knowledge can engage themselves in pure devotional service without wasting time in mental speculation. For arriving at a positive conclusion of knowledge in absolute truth, the word Brahma Darshanam is significant in this verse. Now, Brahma Darshana means to realize or to understand the transcendence. One who engages in the service of Vasudeva can actually realize that Brahman is. What Brahman is? Is Brahman impersonal? Then there is no question of darshanam, which means seeing face to face. Now we understand that the Brahman is actually the effulgence of Krishna, like how a sun has a sun planet and sun rays and a person called Vivaswan. Similarly, Krishna actually has the three ways that he actually shows people. And as it goes, Prabhupada explains this very nicely. He says that a person who is working very hard, he's doing jnana yoga, he wants to control his senses, he wants to be aloof from eating because he doesn't want his senses to engage at all. That's what they are trying to do. Now, one person wants to achieve Brahman, the other person wants to achieve Paramatma. But devotees, they use their senses completely for the sake of Krishna. They see beautiful form of Krishna, they eat nice Krishna prasada. So he says things get so easy for them. He says they are not controlling, they are controlling actually for a high, because they're using it for Krishna. So that is total control. They're not using for sense gratification. So Brahma Darshana means to realize or to understand the transcendence. One who engages in the service of Vasudeva can actually realize what Brahman is. If Brahman is impersonal, then there is no question of darshanam, which means seeing face to face. Darshanam refers to seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. Unless the seer and the seen are persons, there is no darshanam. He says if the person is impersonal, then there is no question of seeing there. Brahma Darshana means that as soon as one sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he can at once realize that what impersonal Brahman is. A devotee does not need to make separate investigations to understand the nature of Brahman. Bhagavad Gita also confirms this. Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. A devotee at once becomes a self-realized soul in absolute truth. So when he sees Krishna, he will see everything together at one point. He sees Krishna as a supreme, beautiful Shyamasundara form. He sees that he has effulgence. And he also sees in every devotee that there is Paramatma. There is a representation of Krishna in the devotees. The exalted devotee's mind becomes equipoised in sensory activities, and he's transcendental to that which is agreeable and not agreeable. So mind automatically, I always remember this, helps me remembering it. Like Satyadev Prabhu always says, mind is like a mirror. You expose the mind to something bad, it will reflect something bad. If you expose the mind only to good things, it will reflect only good things. So I always think about if you watch a horror movie, somebody is watching something sense gratifying, that is what the mind is actually going to reflect back. If a person reads Srimad Bhagavatam or chants, that is what the mind is going to. So mind is actually a very good friend. We can also become the worst enemy. So depending on what you actually expose the mind to, the mind will reflect. So that he says that the exalted devotee's mind becomes equipoised in sensory activities. Why? Because he's exposing his mind only to Krishna consciousness, only Krishna conscious activities. And I was also remembering about the proverb which says that attitudes are contagious. The mind takes the attitude from somebody else and reflects it. Immediately it comes in your way of talking, in your way of acting. So and then that makes me realize more that you have to be associated with people who are more advanced so that you are able to observe their qualities. So Prabhupada says very nicely, he says the significance of advancement in transcendental knowledge and detachment from material attraction is exhibited in the personality of highly advanced devotee. For him there is nothing agreeable or disagreeable because he does not act in a way of his personal sense gratification. Whatever he does, whatever he thinks is the satisfaction for satisfying Krishna. Either in the material world or in the spiritual world, he is equipoised. Mind is completely manifested. He can understand that in the material world there is nothing good. Everything is bad due to being contaminated by material nature. The materialistic conclusions of good and bad, moral and immoral, etc. are simply mental concoction sentiment. Actually, there is nothing good in the material world. In the spiritual field, everything is absolutely good. There is no inebriety in the spiritual varieties. Because the devotee accepts everything in a spiritual vision, he is equipoised. And that is a symptom of being elevated to the transcendental position. He automatically attains detachment, vairagya, then jnana, knowledge, and then actual transcendental knowledge. The conclusion is that an advanced devotee dovetails himself in transcendental qualities of the Lord, and in that sense, he becomes qualitatively one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I was remembering this part, I was just talking to a person, one of the Prabhus who actually does astrology. He was saying that when people who are really true astrologers, Krishna in Paramatma actually helps them do the astrological charts. That's why he says that a person should not charge for the chart. If a person charges for the chart, it becomes sense gratification. So then that person doesn't become a good, true astrologer because then Krishna doesn't reveal to him as such. So a person who doesn't charge for it, then he actually gets that understanding of how to do it through Krishna. So everything happens. So here it is said that, I don't feel anything good or bad here anyway because I know that this is a temporary place. I don't want to look for anything good in anything bad in anything. The thing is, I understand that I have to be detached. I do my work and keep going. Like how we talked about grihasthas in the beginning, where, the grihasthas are those people who are in the family life, but they are absolutely detached. And the next thing he says, because of this transcendental intelligence, the pure devotee is equipoised in his vision and sees himself to be uncontaminated by matter. He does not see anything as superior or inferior, and he feels himself elevated to the transcendental platform of being equal in qualities with the Supreme Person. So he doesn't do any separate endeavor. I'm not supposed to be attached to this, I'm not supposed to be attached to this. So we are actually trying to just get attached to Krishna. Automatically, then we get detached to everything else. So perception of disagreeable arises from attachment. When I'm attached to something, I say this is good, this is bad, this is okay, that is not okay. A devotee has no personal attachment to anything. Therefore, for him there is no question of agreeable or not disagreeable. For the service of the Lord, he can accept anything, even though it may be disagreeable to his personal interest. So this is a very huge thing, and probably a very elevated soul would understand this better. He says that for the service of the Lord, he can accept anything, even though it may be disagreeable to his personal interest. And I was remembering when Maharaj was here, and he was mentioning that Giriraj Maharaj had to stay in Bombay, in those places. You know, for a person who is from a very rich family and has to go and stay in those places. I mean, if it would be absolutely disagreeable for me to go live with rats and small things and live in a swamp. But to him, he was totally surrendered to Prabhupada, and he was able to take to that. So here he says that even though it may be disagreeable to his personal interest, but he would do it because for the service of the Lord and Guru. In fact, he's completely free from personal interest, and thus anything agreeable to the Lord is agreeable to him. For example, for Arjuna at first, fighting was not agreeable. But when he understood that fighting was agreeable to the Lord, he accepted the fighting as agreeable. That is the position of a pure devotee. For his personal interest, there is nothing which is agreeable or not agreeable. Everything is done for the Lord. And therefore, he is free from attachment and detachment. That is transcendental stage of neutrality. So the more a person surrenders to Krishna, the more Krishna actually tells exactly how to do, what to do. So pure devotee enjoys enjoys life in the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. Because he is serving the Lord all the time, he is enjoying his position of being the servitor, and just Krishna tells what to do next, and he just goes, So the Supreme Personality of Godhead is complete transcendental knowledge, but according to the different process of understanding, he appears differently, either as impersonal Brahman or Paramatma, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or as Purushavasaras. So here Prabhupada is mentioning, in the purport he says, very nice, he says, Drishva Adibhi is significant. According to Jiva Goswami, Drishi means jnana, philosophical research. A person sits down and researches everything, not this, not this, not this, and then wants to come into a conclusion of who is the Supreme Person. But different processes of philosophical research under different concepts, such as process of Jnana Yoga, the same Bhagavan or the Supreme Personality is understood as impersonal Brahman. Then he just says, then I understand, okay, the Supreme is impersonal Brahman. Similarly, by the Eightfold Yoga system, he appears as Paramatma. They sit down and do these yoga systems, and then they are realized, like, Patanjali Sutras or all of them, and he says, okay, this is the ultimate, he is Paramatma. But in pure Krishna consciousness or knowledge in purity, when one tries to understand the absolute truth, one realizes him as a Supreme Person. The transcendence is realized simply on the basis of knowledge. The words used here are Paramatmeshwaraha Puman. All are transcendental, and they refer to Supersoul. Supersoul is also described as Purusha. But the word Bhagavan directly refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is full of the 6 opulences: wealth, fame, strength, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. He is the personality of Godhead in different spiritual skies, the various description of Paramatma. So whoever it is, whoever they are looking at, it doesn't matter who they are looking at, as we just mentioned, they are actually reaching the same. So ultimately, to understand the personality of Godhead, one has to accept Bhakti Yoga. So that is actually kind of the conclusion of what Kapila Dev is telling Devahuti. He's saying that by executing, you'll be executing Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga. One has to eventually approach the Bhakti Yoga platform. Then Paramatma, Ishvara, Puman, etc. all are clearly understood. It is recommended in the 2nd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that whether one is a devotee or a fruitative actor or a liberationist, if he is intelligent enough, he should engage himself with the seriousness in the process of devotional service. It is also explained that whatever one desires, which is obtainable by fruitative activities, even if one wants to be elevated to higher planets, he can be he can achieve that simply by execution of devotional service. This is like, do you want this package? Do you want that package? Do you want this package? In this particular package, you have everything else. So Kapila Muni is very clear. He's saying that you put everything together and just follow Bhakti Yoga. You don't have to do anything separate. So you want to do it, you can try, you can do it. But again, he mentions it very clearly. Prabhupada again says in the purports that you don't have to go follow anything separately. You just follow this, automatically everything will fall in place. The one Supreme Personality of Godhead reveals himself to different thinkers as the Supreme Person or impersonal Brahman or Paramatma. This is very beautiful because I always think that when a person reads Bhagavad Gita, he understands different things. Some people say, oh, Krishna is actually not saying that, he's saying this. The other person says, no, Krishna was actually trying to tell this. So here he says very clearly, the same Shyamasundara, he actually is different for different thinkers. Some of them he is the impersonal Brahman. For some of them he is this beautiful form of Shyamasundara, or he is the Paramatma. So impersonal is merged into impersonal Brahman, but that is not achieved by the worshipping the impersonal Brahman. If one takes to devotional service and at the same time desires to merge into the existence of Supreme Lord, he can achieve that. If someone desires at all to merge into the existence of Supreme, he has to execute devotional service. So that's what he's mentioning in the entire purport. He says that everything that you take actually ends up in the same thing. So the greatest common understanding for all yogis is complete detachment from matter, which can be achieved by different kinds of yoga. So basically what we're trying to do, we are living in the material world, we're not supposed to be here, we have to go back to the spiritual world, that is the bottom line. Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga are three different kinds of yogas. And what do? They all want to get out of this material entanglement, and they want to detach themselves from matter. Now, Jnanis try to detach their sensual activities from material engagement. The Jnana Yogis thinks that matter is false and that Brahman is the truth. Therefore, by cultivation of knowledge, he tries to detach the senses from material enjoyment. The Ashtanga Yogis also is trying to control the senses. The devotees, however, try to engage the sense in the service of the Lord. Therefore, it appears that the activities of bhaktas or devotees are better than those of jnanis and yogis, because it's be very difficult, especially in the age of Kali Yuga, where people cannot, forget there's probably no forest because people are cutting down all the trees. There's no place to even sit down and do the yoga meditation. So he's talking about all these things. He says, the mystic yogis simply try to control the senses by practicing the eightfold system of yoga, yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara. And the jnanis try by mental reasoning. They sit down and they start reasoning, logical reasoning, to understand that sense enjoyment is false. But the easiest way and the most direct process is to engage the senses in the service of Rishikesha. So the purpose of all yogis is basically to detach one's sense activities from the material world. So the final aim, however, are different. Jnanis want to become one with Brahman effulgence. So everybody is reaching Krishna, but everybody is reaching Krishna in a different mood. So Jnanis want to become one with the Brahman effulgence, yogis want to realize the Paramatma, and devotees want to become the servants of Krishna. The loving service, they want to actually serve Krishna. That loving service is the perfect stage of sense control. Yes, Prabhu.
Where do the yogis go? What is that final destination? Who are, meditating on Paramatma?
Brahmajyoti,
Brahmajyoti, without those who are jnanis, they go there.
they go to Brahmajyoti.
Yes, they are.
Now, my understanding was they all are also taking the route to go back to Godhead, but they take a long time. Oh, in the meantime, when they actually attain the perfection of thinking on Paramatma, Prabhuji?
I think it was mentioned in one of the earlier verses, right? Those who are worshippers of the Hiranyagarbha.
Oh, they get
They
into
go to
Brahma.
the Brahmaloka, and then
Yes.
along with the lifetime of Brahma, they go to the
Yes.
spiritual world.
Yeah, let me get to the verse, one second.
I think, you had it in your PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yes,
did mention
this
here,
one.
Prabhu, worshippers of Hiranyagarbha, expansion of the personality of Godhead, remain within this material world until the end of two pararthas, when Lord Brahma also dies. After experiencing the inhabitable time of the three modes of material nature, when the two pararthas, Lord Brahma closes the material universe, which is covered Okay, the yogis who become detached from the material world by practicing breathing exercises and control of mind reach the planet of Brahma, which is far, far away. After giving up their bodies, they enter into the body of Brahma. And therefore, when Brahma is liberated and goes to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the Supreme Brahman, such yogis can also enter into the kingdom of God. But the only concern here is they have to be in this material world for two prarardhas. That is a long time. Like till Brahma is 52 now, and we were just talking about him being there. One day of Brahma is 1,000 cycles of the 4 yugas. Online. What are you project?
So the yogis, do they have to be in that meditative whatever consciousness
Till
for
then-
that long?
Till that time, till they go, till
Because
they get to
they
be the
might
Brahma.
realize the Paramatma and again fall down or whatever, right? That could happen, no? I mean, the yogis, you do meditation and after a while, they might again fall down, come back to the regular.
I think that's
Yes.
mentioned in the purport
Yes.
of that verse.
Yes, there is. That is also
So
mentioned in the
sometimes-
next one. He says that if suppose someone may worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead with special self-interest, but even demigods such as Lord Brahma, great sages as Sanat Kumara, and great munis like Marichi have to come back to the material world again at the time of creation, when the interaction of the 3 modes of material nature begins. Brahma, who is the creator of this cosmic manifestation, who is full of Vedic knowledge, and then he says, and yoga system come back under the influence of time factor. They are liberated by their non-fruitive activities and attain the first incarnation of the Purusha, but at the time of creation they come back. Now, I did some little bit of reading on the Gurujana Prabhu's book. It mentions that it could happen to anybody in the post of Brahma or any yogis who have not achieved the prema bhakti, to Lord. Then they have to come back to their position. Same position, they come back and they take it. But for those people who have achieved, then they go back to Godhead. Rohit, that is answer?
Yes, actually partially, because even after going to Brahmaloka, the yogi who has been meditating on unrealized Paramatma, if he's still doing the same thing there, will he go back to Godhead?
Yeah, that's what is said. He is going back to Godhead.
But because he hasn't actually realized the Bhagavan feature, so how can he go?
So that is what I also had. I was thinking where the 4 Kumaras, right? They were impersonalists. They changed because of being in association. They saw Krishna. They smelled tulsi leaves. So there will. I mean, as you say, they will have to transform again to. There will be a situation where they will be given a chance to understand Krishna as a Shyama Sundara form. But again, if they don't realize, then they probably again come back, as it is said in the next verse, that they will again come back taking their own positions. That is what is said in the next position. He says that when the interaction of the 3 modes, when the interaction of the modes of material nature begins, Brahma, who is the creator of this cosmic manifestation, who is full of Vedic knowledge and before that, here he says, my dear mother, someone may worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead with a special self-interest. Right? He wants to become, he has yogic powers and things like that, and his focus was not again to go back home, back to Godhead. Even demigods such as Brahma, great sages as Sanat Kumaras, and great munis such as Marichi have to come back to the material world again at the time of creation. And at that time, they actually take their own positions they previously had. So again, they'll have to do their job and get the mercy of the Lord and then get home back to Godhead. With that.
So
Yes, Prabhu.
he was saying about somebody who has realized the Paramatma, right?
Yes.
So I was thinking Paramatma is actually an expansion of the Lord.
Yeah.
So if you have gone that far, then the Lord would show us the path to get attracted to his personal form as well.
Yeah, the Paramatma is also personal.
It's also in the sense, he was asking, without realizing the Bhagavan feature, how can you go to Goloka or whatever? Right?
Right.
That
Yes.
was the question.
Yes.
Right. He has realized the Paramatma feature, but he has not realized the Bhagavan feature of the Lord.
Yeah, but going back to God doesn't mean only to Goloka. Yeah, Vaikuntha also. There's Shantarasa there also. So those yogis are in Shantarasa. So they, whatever is the consciousness to continue that rasa, they will go there. It doesn't mean that they will be there. That's if that's your question. Is that correct, Prabhu? Shantarasa is there in the spiritual world also.
So, Prahlad Maharaj, he achieved perfection, but he is in Shantaras. And the other thing is, when we say abode of God, what is abode of Paramatma? There is
I was just going to
that is
ask
the point,
that.
right? So Paramatma expands himself because there is a material world. The Lord expands himself as Paramatma. So those who worship Paramatma, they live in this material world with Brahma for 2 parardas.
That's the only disadvantage.
Disadvantage, advantage, because they are already in the Paramatma Samahita, it is said in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, they are absorbed in Paramatma. So there is, in that sense, that there is, don't feel the
that is
discomfort
so
of material
true.
world.
Yeah,
whether
there's
they
no
live here.
disadvantage because they're
Exactly.
already in Krishna consciousness
They're-
completely. So there is no question. It's
Exactly.
only our perception.
Exactly. There is a Maya Tita, but in Paramatma realization, there is no direct service. There is no direct. The goal of our Mahaprabhu came to give us that service which constitutes the highest ecstasy. Because Paramatma realization doesn't have that service, that is kind of considered less according to Mahaprabhu's standard. But in reality, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, it's perfection. That is itself perfection. That Yomam Pashyati Sarvatra, where everybody sees me, that is Paramatma realization. Paramatma is there everywhere. Yomam Pashyati Sarvatra, Sarvam cha Mayi Pashyati. So, because Paramatma is present everywhere, the yogi who has achieved perfection in Paramatma sees Paramatma everywhere. That itself is a perfection.
I get that. Yeah.
The risk is there.
Because as long as in the material world,
Right.
there is that
Because
risk.
there are 2 parardhas that they have to stay here. There's a risk.
Of course, they are absorbed in the Paramatma, realization. But I meant as long as, of course, risk is there everywhere. But if you are that long in the material world, there is a risk of getting contaminated or whatever, right? No?
In Paramatma, no. In Brahman, yes.
Prabhu,
Paramatma.
mic.
In Paramatma realization, Krishna says, Yomam Pashyati Sarvatra, Sarvam cha Mayi Pashyati, Tassaham na pranashami, Sachaname pranashyati. So he says, on that platform, no question of falling down. But the point is, if that is the constitutional position of a jiva to serve the Lord in Shanta, then you achieve Paramatma and you are happy there. But your constitutional position is Golok, then you'll automatically not be happy at Paramatma level. It's like
It's like
Gopakumar.
Gopakumara.
Oh, I see. So it is their rasa with
Rasa
the Lord.
with
Exactly,
the Lord.
that constitutional eternal rasa which they had, that propels them on that levels. For those who are on the Paramatma, that's about it.
So the risk is, as we read, once when they see the Paramatma, some yogis might think that I am that.
Yeah.
That is that last snare.
Correct.
Then once they have absorbed and realized Paramatma and accept that they and Paramatma are different and they are this thing, then that realization, after that risk is not there.
That risk is not there, and also the thing is, they have already realized. When the realization of Paramatma means that already they are in that position. And they are one with Paramatma, but at the same time they are different. Paramatma Samahita. So that's...
Yes. That makes it clear, Prabhu.
And
Thank you.
also,
Yes.
it explains in the books that the yogi sees, when he's meditating Paramatma, he sees them as a 4-handed form of Vishnu, right?
Yes.
Seated in the hearts of all living entities. So in a one hand, and one sense, he's actually seeing Lord Vishnu there.
That's what I was
But
also just
although-
thinking. He is actually meditating on the 4 Vasudeva,
Yes, yes.
the 4-handed form.
Yes.
So that means Vaikuntha planets, right?
So after his span of life in Brahmalok, they go back to Vaikuntha Lok, the yogis. No. The yogis.
No, just the
who are-
yogis.
Yogis who are meditating Paramatma. They go back to Vaikuntha Lok. Okay. No, I'm asking that question to you.
Yogis who meditate on...
Paramatma.
It depends. The thing is, here in spiritual life, there is no hard and fast rule. There are no rules that you do this, you go there. You do this, you go there. There are unlimited number of spiritual planets. If material world itself, it constitutes 1/4 of Lord's creation, and that itself is innumerable number of universes, with innumerable number of souls. And each soul has a different, distinct way of enjoying the Lord or having a relationship with Lord. And Lord himself is infinite. How can you make rules? Or how can you even categorize that innumerable number of destinations for innumerable number of souls? So, but the general rule is that this is mentioned here, that they go back to Vaikuntha Lok, or they go back to the specific abodes of the Lord, where they are constantly meditating on the Lord. For example, when we go read the 5th canto, we see how Prahlad Maharaj is in, Hanuman is in Kimpurusha Varsha, is always meditating on Lord Ram, and that's his eternal position. So we'll get into the more finer details when we kind of go there. But having said that, there is no, like, black and white.
Yeah, every soul has
this stage is this, the stage is this. That
every soul has a different perfect destination.
Exactly.
So there is no...
Exactly. So this is, we cannot say that. The only way is that when the devotee actually crosses through different stages, then based on the satisfaction of the soul, then you see whether that's their position or not. Lord Ram, Hanuman says that's it. Worship of Lord Ram is everything to me. That is his perfection. That is his perfection stage to the Supreme Lord.
Yeah.
Mahaprabhu asked him when he came as Murari Gupta, worship Krishna, and then he was about to commit suicide because of the fact that I can't disobey your instructions, but I can't give up Lord Ram. And Mahaprabhu said, I'm just testing you, so continue worshiping Lord Ram. So every devotee has that special unique rasa with a special unique personality of Lord. Not just everybody is going to Golok Vrindavan and see Krishna in Shyam Sundar form. Some have Narasimha, some have Ram, some have so many. This Lord has unlimited number of incarnations.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, that's why in that verse 10, Srila Prabhupada gives generally as such yogis can also enter into the kingdom of God. So
Yes.
It's it's general. It's not like a specific thing, as Prabhu said. That individual destination within the kingdom could depend on Plus, it's a consciousness. Always, whatever your perfection you desire, you achieve that within that kingdom. So in that sense, Prabhu's understanding is right. Like they go to the Vaikuntha planets, but within that, where
Even in Vaikuntha planets also there are.
Prabhu, for Mike.
right. So that's why that's
There is
the
Shanta and Dasya within Vaikuntha.
right. So
So there is Shanta and Dasya in Vaikuntha.
In Vaikuntha. But if you want to go further, then you have to pass that stage and go to Golok Vrindavan.
So the kingdom of God includes all those realms. Yes. So that much. We
So
can
that
say.
makes it clear, right, Prabhu?
So Prabhu, there is no like Dasya, Shantarasa in Goloka?
Is there?
It's
There
there,
is,
no?
yeah.
His flute, cows, grass,
and all that,
trees.
right? That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's there. Because if Goloka won't...
I understood, I heard like that, that's why I want to clarify.
Oh, no, thank you. No, it is there, but if you really want to go more, that's what it is. Because if Golok won't include Shanta, means there is something defective in Golok. Because it doesn't have, there is no way it can include all,
It has
right.
everything.
Right. Yeah.
But actually, in the present age yoga, not many people even think about the Ashtanga yoga. They stop either at pranayama or asana, and within that only they get
But
lot
that
of
is also,
sidetracking
they do
actually.
pranayama for their health.
Health, yeah. So
There's no connection with the soul at all. Right?
absolute practice of yoga, like how Prabhupada mentioned, it's like it's not possible.
It's
these days.
nil. Right? I mean, you hardly see anybody doing it. Maybe you probably see actually more devotees. Right? Because of Prabhupada's mercy.
It's not a bad sign.
Yeah. So let's... Prabhu, is that fine? Can I go on?
It's going to take some time for me to not.
There is so much more coming in Bhagavatam.
We only have 15 minutes. So
Yeah, no,
we
there's so
cannot
much
spend
more
too
in
much time
Bhagavatam that keeps
discussing
coming
here.
on us that every time you think, oh, there's something more. The more you read, the more you don't know. You realize that. Yeah. So those who are averse to the transcendence realize the Supreme Personality of Absolute Truth differently through speculative sense perception. Therefore, because of mistaken speculation, everything appears to them be relative. So we just looked at that. Because every yogi, Ashtanga yogi, feels something else, Bhakti yogi, depending on their perception. So from the total energy, the Mahatattva have manifested the false ego, the 3 modes of material nature, the 5 material elements, the individual consciousness, the 11 senses, and the material body. Similarly, the entire universe has come from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we looked at this actually in detail before, where actually we are individual souls, we have our body, Krishna is the super soul, and he has the universal body, universal form that we are looking at. So this particular purport actually made things very clear as far as my understanding is concerned about universal form, because it was pretty confusing about whether it's true, it's false, it's existing. Is he standing actually on the, the lotus stem? It is actually a form that Krishna has just for the material universe. It's his, because he is part of everything that is existing. There's nothing that can exist, material or spiritual, without him. So this perfect knowledge can be achieved by a person who's already engaged in devotional service with faith, steadiness and full detachment, and who's always absorbed in the thought of Supreme. He is aloof from the material association. So here it's very clearly said, now who gets this perfect knowledge is a person should have complete faith. Again, I don't really reveal my innermost secrets to anybody who is envious about me. I will tell about me only to persons who's a good friend and who has a faith in me. So that's what Krishna is saying, that he will reveal about him, his innermost secrets, only to people who have faith in him. The atheistic mystic practitioner of yoga cannot understand this perfect knowledge. Only persons who engage in the practical activities of devotional service in full Krishna consciousness can become absorbed in full samadhi. It is possible for them to see and understand the actual fact of entire cosmic manifestation and its cause. It is clearly stated here that it is not possible, it's very important, not possible to understand for one who has not developed the devotional service in full faith. And that is synonymous to samadhi, he's saying. So samadhi is actually complete faith in Krishna and, surrendering to Krishna. Now that was the main conclusion that Kapila Muni is doing in this chapter is, he says, "My dear mother, therefore I advise you that you take the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for his lotus feet are worth worshipping. Accept this with all devotion and love, for thus you can be situated in transcendental devotional service. Engagement in Krishna consciousness and application of devotional service unto Krishna make it possible to advance in Krishna consciousness with complete knowledge." So we read that. So the main conclusion that he gets out of is, he says that towards the end he actually says, "My dear mother, I have explained to you the process of devotional service and its identity in 4 different social divisions. I have explained to you as well how eternal time is chasing the Supreme Personality, chasing the living entities, although it is imperceptible to them." So I just wanted to touch upon this really quick. I know we have less time. I'll just go ahead quickly to 38. Basically, that's what he is continuing to say, but there's one important point in the 38 where he says, it actually makes it very clear why Krishna created the 4 ashramas and varnas. He says that there are varieties of material existence of the living entity according to the work he performs in ignorance or forgetfulness of his real identity. He's already forgotten that he is part of Krishna and he is in this material world. And what should be done in such situation? My dear mother, if anyone enters into that forgetfulness, he's unable to understand where his moments will end. So he doesn't even know where he is. I think it is... sorry, 1 second, 32. So here he says that we kind of looked at all these, and he's still continuing to talk about a single object is appreciated differently by different senses due to its varying qualities. We looked at it about different processes of thing. I actually want to get to the part where he talks about varnas and ashramas. Yeah. As it is stated in the previous verse, one has to follow the principles of scriptures. Now you have this body, you are living in the material world, you've gone against Krishna, you're there. What are you supposed to do? Here it is stated that the performance of fruitive activities and sacrifices and distribution of charity are activities meant for persons who are in the householder life. So that's the reason Krishna actually created the brahmacharya, grahastha, vanaprastha and sannyasa. And he says for grahasthas or householders, performance of sacrifice, they have to give things in charity, and action according to prescribed duties are especially recommended. Similarly, austerity, study of Vedic literature and philosophical research are meant for vanaprasthas or retired persons. Study of Vedic literature for bona fides from the bona fide spiritual master is for brahmacharis, and atmendriya jaya or control of mind and taming of the senses is meant for the person in the renounced order of life. So that is the main purpose of a person, Krishna creating the ashramas. So that is the reason that you have to have this. Now again, why did Krishna create Varnas? He says that, everybody is in different level. They have to get to that level by doing certain things, and that's why they put in this Varnas. The words Bhakti Yogena Chaivahi means that whatever is to be performed as described in the verse 34, where yoga or sacrifice or fruitive activity or study of Vedic literature or philosophical research or acceptance of renounced order of life is to be executed in Bhakti Yoga. So there's no use of being a Graha Medi, they have to be a Grahastha. Again, connecting back to the first verse, he says you have to follow. You're a Grahastha, just follow, be a Grahastha, don't be a Graha Medi. So the words Chaivahi, according to Sanskrit grammar, indicate that one must perform all these activities mixed with devotional service. Whatever situation you are, just do it for me. So Krishna tells, Yat karoshi yad ashnasi. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you sacrifice, or whatever austerities you perform, do everything and you undergo, and whatever charities you give, the result should be given to the Supreme Lord. The word eva is added, indicating that one must execute activities in such a way. So unless a person does that, there is no use. His position is actually totally unsure. So one has to approach the Supreme Lord Krishna as it is stated in Bhagavad Gita. And again, Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, he says, after many, many births, one approaches, after many births, one actually approaches the Lord in that way. So, he says, Bhoktaram Yagne Tapasham. For anyone who's undergoing the rigid austerity, or for anyone performing different kinds of sacrifices, the beneficiary is Krishna. So he is the proprietor of all planets, and he is the friend of every living soul. I always feel this point so much more. Like when kids are learning how to bike, or you always want to make sure they are always protected. They don't want you to touch the bike on the back. They want to drive themselves. And still, as parents, you just try to hold. You'll just be there, and if suppose they fall down, you are ready to hold. So Krishna is, even though we told Krishna we don't want to be with you, we want to be ourselves. Krishna comes as a Paramatma and is sitting down, waiting to hear. At any point you need help, I'm there. So that makes, in the material world, the max you can compare Krishna is to a parent who's always behind your back, wants to make sure everything is going fine. So that's what he says. He says that he is the friend of every living soul. And of course, he talks a little bit about a hungry man feels strength and satisfaction from eating. At the same time, he gradually becomes detached from eating anymore. Because he eats so much, he's so full, even though you give him so much more food, which is very wonderful, he still doesn't want to eat it. Similarly, when a person executes a devotional service, when a person does devotional service, real knowledge develops and one becomes detached from all material activities. In no other activity but devotional service is there a detached from matter and attachment to the Supreme. So everybody is trying to achieve it, then why achieve the difficult way? And of course, Krishna gives the 9 processes of devotional service: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. So these are the 9 processes in which a person can actually slowly get attached to Krishna and detached to the material activities. So most important thing is understanding Supreme Person, that Atma Tattva Avabodhane, which means understanding of one's real constitutional position. If one actually understands one's constitutional position as an eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord, he becomes detached from the service of the material world. Everyone engages in some sort of service. If one does not know one's constitutional position, one engages in the service of the personal gross body or the family, and then remains a Graha Medi all his life. I will actually, I know we probably have to take 10 minutes for questions or realizations. So we'll just, what Kapila Muni tells towards the end, he says, anyone who once meditates upon me with faith and devotion, who hears and chants about me, surely comes back home, back to Godhead. So in the end, he actually does say, he tells that, so he's comparing all the 3 ways of reaching the Godhead, and tells his mother that just take up to Bhakti Yoga. Forget about everything else. And he says this Phalasmriti, what is the use of reading this entire chapter is, anyone who once meditates upon me with faith and affection, who hears and chants about me, surely goes home back to Godhead. Thank you so much. I would like to open it for discussion. Any other questions or... Thank you, Prabhu, for being there to answer the questions. And my understanding of the scriptures are very limited, and I'm trying hard in all your association. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Yes, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji, for the very nice class. Even though we asked you to present at the last moment, with 2 days' notice, you still did it. Thank you so much. In one purport, somewhere where we were reading, I forgot, it's 23, 24 or whatever, it said that even to merge with the Lord, we need to perform devotional service. Merge in the body of the Lord. So, this merging, so far I had thought, is like the Gyanis, who realize the impersonal Brahman and they want to merge in the... Is that different from this merging? Because for that, they don't perform devotional service. They just read and then they discriminate, distinguish, they acquire knowledge, self-realization, become detached, and then they, merge with the light or whatever. But here he said to merge in the body of the Lord, one has to execute devotional service.
Does it say merge in the body of Lord, Mataji?
It was there.
This is 26.
26, okay. Let's read that.
Come down, yeah. Some more?
Yeah, in the last line.
Yeah, the first para.
Where, Mataji? This one? Here? Okay. The one supreme absolute, the one supreme personality of Godhead reveals himself to different thinkers as the supreme person or impersonal Brahman or Paramatma. Impersonalists merge into the impersonal Brahman, but that is not achieved by worshipping the impersonal Brahman. If one takes to devotional service and at the same time desires to merge into the existence of Supreme Lord, he can achieve that. If one sometimes desires at all to merge into the existence of the Lord, he has to execute devotional service. So this actually, sorry, Prabhu.
No, you can go up read one paragraph.
I was remembering one point in this, Prabhu.
Yeah, okay, go ahead. You can
I
make
was
the
just
point.
thinking that, many impersonalists that I personally know who feel that Krishna doesn't have a form, they are very devoted in worshipping the form also. Because I heard them say this, that they do the form just because he exists here, but his form is not the highest. Yeah. So they do the puja. They will do all. They will to see it will be that they are actually worshipping, but their purpose of worshipping is different. So yes, Prabhu.
No, wonderful. That's a wonderful point. And if you can read the one previous chapter, you can see the
Period
whole
paragraph?
context. Yeah, previous paragraph, sorry.
Okay.
And then you'll see the whole context why Prabhupada is trying in that.
Okay. Ultimately, to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one has to accept Bhakti Yoga. By executing Jnana Yoga or Dhyana Yoga, one has to eventually approach the Bhakti Yoga platform. And then Paramatma, Ishvara, Puman, etc. are all clearly understood. It is recommended in the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that whether one is a devotee or a fruit actor or liberationist, fruitative actor or a liberationist, if he is intelligent enough, he should engage himself in all seriousness in the process of devotional service. It is also explained that whatever one desires, which is obtainable by fruitative activities, even if one wants to be elevated to higher planets, can be achieved simply by execution of devotional service. Since the Supreme Lord is full in six opulences, he can bestow any one of them upon the worshipper. The one Supreme Personality of Godhead reveals himself to different thinkers.
So the point is that any form of yoga, ultimately, if without Bhakti Yoga, it won't be successful. So again, it comes back to the topic of yoga ladder. If you want to merge with the Supreme Lord, then you still have to have some Bhakti Yoga to achieve the success.
Merging in the Brahman that they talk about, that's different?
It's the same thing, but I don't see the Lord as form and somebody whom I need to serve. I see Lord as impersonal Brahman. Now he is accessible to me because I can't worship impersonal Brahman. Yeah. I need some form to worship. I'll worship that form. But my ultimate goal is to go back and go beyond this form, which I see, into the actual form of the Lord, which is impersonal.
Yeah, I heard them saying like, Bhakti is a path to Jnana. So that's what they need that.
Right, so they're subservient.
So Krishna is, here Prabhupada is saying that without some form of devotional service, whether you accept it or not, or whether it is you accept it as supreme or not, you need to do that to get to your, final stage, whatever you...
Right. It is somehow accepting PhD as inferior to going to first grade or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I actually heard that people say that they feel that Brahman is the highest, but that the form is lower, and that you have to do the form to understand the Brahman.
Like once, I never met anybody before like that, and I never could think that people can think like that. But then his brother had come, he follows that. And then he said, we are all beyond what you're doing. I was like, so I was thinking, bhakti is just the initial stage. We go beyond that. We read, we speak, not analyze. So this is just an initial step to achieve the gyan. I was amazed to actually even see, people really believe like that.
Prabhupada mentioned in the purport just now.
I mean, he
Very
says
difficult.
everywhere about
Yeah,
impersonalism, but I've never actually meant anyone until I heard from him. Oh, okay, people do. Because I've always seen why Prabhupada so much talks about impersonalism. Are they like that? Are they into that? Because I've not met anybody who actually says that.
I have met many.
When I saw people...
Full of them.
No, I'm not personally talked to somebody.
Yeah.
Then when I saw, family, right, closely, when they talk like that, then I thought, wow, they really believe jnana is, superior to bhakti.
Even Prakashananda Saraswati chastised.
Prabhu, phone, mic. Prabhu, mic.
You're all doing sentimental stuff with low-class people. This is some mild exhibition of emotions, irrational exhibition of emotion. Come to us. Come to us. Come to our level.
Yeah, Abhi, just now here, Prabhupada mentioned in the purport also that people who are actually chanting, they're considered to be lower. Yeah, the Prabhupada is very clearly mentioning about that. But yeah, it doesn't...
The amazing point is that I found that our chanting improves when we read Prabhupada's books, because we really know how important it is that we are doing it. Why even in the... Otherwise,
Yeah.
it just... what is it that we are doing? There is such a profound...
And here we also read. Right? It's both. It is both. But then again, the reading will make no sense if you don't chant. Right? You have to do both simultaneously. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the nice class, Mataji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.